Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Just Jocelyn. I'm so glad you could join me today. We have Wayne Saya, and he is returning with us because he's got some breaking news. He has some information on his litigation that he filed 7 months ago.
It was actually in December of 21.
December of 2020. Oh, the original.
The original.
The original. And so we're here to talk about what the outcome of that is. What does it mean to Nashua? What does it mean to you and me? So I'm just going to go over just for a minute, introduce Wayne again for you. Wayne's dad was one of the men that developed the second TV station in the country, which was WBZ TV in Boston. Wayne's son is an active officer in the U.S. Navy. Thank you very much. Thank you to your son. And a graduate of the U.S. Naval Academy in Annapolis. And he graduated from Nashua North. So there you go. His daughter is a registered nurse and was absolutely knee-deep in COVID. And thank you again for your service and taking care of everybody. You've been married for over 30 years. Your credentials are way, way, way too long to mention, but you're an author with a division of Simon & Schuster and an electronics design engineer holding a number of U.S. security patents. Before you retired, you were the CEO and executive director of a Washington, D.C. based facility engineering organization. Welcome to the show, Wayne.
Well, thank you, Jocelyn.
I'm so glad to have you here. So, you know, I've asked you, we've known each other for probably just about 2 years, and I've asked you on a number of occasions after your initial filing of your little litigation to come on and speak about what's going on in New Hampshire, and you very politely have declined. But now you're here, and it seems troubled that regarding our elected officials and our judicial system and what your litigation came back as.
Well, first and foremost, back in December of 2021, I filed a complaint with the U.S. District Court in Concord, New Hampshire, relative to the face mask mandates that were going on in Nashua at the time.
Okay.
There was one ordinance in particular that I was concerned about because that ordinance, even to date, has not been rescinded, and that is ordinance number 21-065. And,
Wow.
And that ordinance, although the city of Nashua has been explaining that it is a recommendation, it's not read as a recommendation. If you read the language in it, it's actually telling businesses that they are required to have people wear face masks. And to this day, the statute continues to say that. Now, it's not being enforced, which makes it an unenforced mandate, which in New Hampshire is illegal under statute or under state law.
Because that it attempts to supersede.
Well, that's
the
a different
state?
that's a different issue. That
Okay.
That particular issue, which I'm arguing, or which I wasn't given an opportunity in federal court to argue, is the fact that New Hampshire is a non-home rule state.
Non-home rule.
And
Meaning?
what that means is that if there is a state law in place, then no city or town can create its own law or its own ordinance that supersedes that state law.
Oh.
But if a state law isn't in place, obviously Nashua can do that. Well, there's a state law in place currently within the Department of Health and Human Services. And that state law permits me to design my own method of cures. If I want to wear a mask, if I don't want to wear a mask, that statute allows me to do that. And it's statute.
So to have your own body autonomy, essentially?
That's correct.
Okay.
Let's see, I don't know if I have that information with me, but it's I believe it's RSA 141, and it particularly stipulates that. Well, it also has a numbered paragraph which gives me procedural due process. In other words, there's a due process clause that has to be followed with regard to the how a person receives medical treatment in the state.
Okay.
So this ordinance 21-065 eliminates that. It no longer gives the
Eliminates
autonomy.
your body autonomy.
Yes,
Okay.
and I'll explain to you why. It does because at any time, Nashua can call a bunch of businesses in the city and say, we want you to start enforcing a mandate that's currently in full force and effect under 21065 ordinance. And then the cities and towns will start complying with that, not realizing that it's in violation of a state law.
Okay.
And so what I did is I filed something under what's called under color of state law. And I filed a 42 USC 1983 civil rights action
Yep.
in the federal court. Well, the federal court held my complaint for about 3 months, and then I got a one sentence without a hearing. I got a one sentence back stating it's denied because we don't believe you've been injured. I wasn't permitted to provide evidence.
Yeah.
Because remember, when you file a complaint in any court, a complaint is just an allegation. You don't have to put proof in the complaint.
Right. You're just alleging.
All you're doing is you're
XYZ.
alleging that,
Yep.
and then you want to be able to have the opportunity to go
explain.
to court
Yep.
and present your argument. Well, the federal district court in New Hampshire didn't permit me to do that. And then I said, well, that's kind of odd. Let me appeal to the U.S. Court of Appeals in Boston for the First Circuit. Because we are in what's called the First Circuit.
Right.
The First Circuit is a number of states.
Yep.
I believe there are 9 circuits in the United
I
States.
think so too.
And so when I appealed it, I followed all of the procedures within the guidelines that I'm supposed to follow in presenting that type of an appeal to the U.S. Court of Appeals.
Okay.
I paid my whatever the money I paid, $500 and something to file it, and then I started waiting for to be called for a hearing because I also filed a motion for a hearing on the case.
Okay.
So I could present my evidence on why I believe the district court erred
Which I
in
thought
their
is
decision.
you're always supposed to be able to present your evidence. You're not supposed to be judged on nothing, that they simply decided out of thin air that you have no injury. I
Well-
mean, when did they become doctors and,
Well,
you know?
that's. I think that's it. One of the issues that I have is that the judge didn't. The judge erred in not permitting me to argue my case. And there's a couple of other arguments that I put in there. I believe I put a total of 4 arguments in my appeal to the U.S. Court of Appeals. And so in my 7th month of waiting for an opinion, I'm sitting back thinking, okay, maybe they're probably writing something out.
You're going to get a book.
Yeah, maybe. Well,
Maybe.
I'm thinking that maybe they're doing at least a page or 2 on
Yeah.
each of the issues, or maybe they're not addressing 3 out of the 4. Maybe they're just addressing one of the issues, and they're making it because, after all, I'm alleging that the city of Nashua is creating a home rule state for their city,
Right.
and that's not allowed with the New Hampshire Constitution. Because it's a violation of a number of different statutes within New Hampshire.
Okay.
And so I get a notification on July 13th, dated July 12th, and they gave a 1-page decision, and the opinion was 1 sentence. To the extent that some businesses in the city of Nashua may have violated this aspect of the ordinance, plaintiff has not suffered any injury, in fact, that is fairly traceable to the municipal defendants. And I'll tell you something, I got outraged when I read that because they're stating here that, first of all, businesses in the city of Nashua may have violated. I never argued that.
Correct.
It was
That
never
not
one
a
of my
point that
arguments.
you
My
brought up.
argument is that Nashua is the municipality that is engaged in the violation.
Right.
And that the district court judge never addressed it and never allowed me to argue it.
Okay.
And therefore, this is what I want the court to address and what I want the court to look at.
Right. So you kind of went to the supervisor, for lack of another word, to say this was not dealt with at this level. I need you to deal with it. and they come back with this.
Well, the U.S. Court of Appeals is usually the type of a court that they say, okay, we're going to take a look at all of the documents in this case. But I cut it down because when I submitted this case, it was submitted with a 77-page complaint with 6 different issues. It was a 25-page affidavit with a dozen exhibits. The 77-page complaint had over 100 pages of exhibits. Now, remember, this is just an allegation, but I wanted to show the court that I had validity for the allegations that I was submitting. And I was very methodical with regard to how I submitted it to the court. And for the court to say, well, no, we're just going to wait 7 months and then just give you this one line.
We'll just blow you off, brush you off.
Well, it just goes to show you that the courts aren't looking after the people anymore. And,
which we kind of knew, but this is now.
Well, look, I know that there's been a number of times when you said, Wayne, the courts aren't doing this and the courts aren't doing that. And I said, look, you've got to give them time.
You've said to me, no, you got to wait the time. You got to jump through the hoops. You got to do this. You've told me that multiple times.
And when I saw this, I said, you know something? I think a lot of the allegations that these people make are actually starting to come true. Because when I submit an allegation and a complaint to federal court, and I pay my money to make that filing, and then the judge just looks at me as though I'm insignificant,
right,
and doesn't even want to grant me a hearing, and says, no, we're just going to deny this. Judge Barbadero, who I used to have great respect for, and now I'm thinking to myself, well, he's a retired judge who takes a number of different cases, and I think it's probably time that judges coming in the future have a number of years they're allowed to
so
serve.
No lifetime appointments.
I think lifetime appointments now are just a waste of time. And they're allowing judges now to have their parties behind back doors with their shiny black shoes and not do any of the work and submit one-line opinions on a case that was an inch and a half thick. And to come back and say, no, you really didn't have a case. And I'm saying, what do you mean I don't have a case?
I mean, you supplied information, exhibits, et cetera, evidence that you didn't have to because, again, like you said, it's an allegation.
Right.
So for him to blow that, just blow you off and blow that evidence off like...
Well, I've got I've got medical records.
Very strange.
There's medical records that haven't been submitted. There's affidavits that weren't provided because I didn't have to. It's an allegation.
Well, what did you do? A secret spying game on you and decided on their own that you don't have any medical issues? I mean, that sounds really bizarre to me.
I was given one Zoom phone call, and that was called a pre-trial hearing to indicate exactly what I was looking for, what I was looking to do with regard to the case.
Right.
And to come back and now let me explain something else. About 75% of my case I thought was resolved when back in April of this year, I believe it was April of this year. It was actually April of 2021.
Okay.
New Hampshire House Bill 440 was submitted, and House Bill 440. What it did is it prohibits the suspension of civil liberties during a state of emergency. And by doing that, I said, okay, the governor signed the bill when it was passed through the legislature, the New Hampshire House and the New Hampshire Senate. And now there's a bill in place that I can't lose my liberties if the governor produces or exercises a state of emergency in the state. So I said, well, I know that there's a number of allegations that I've made in my complaint. I'm going to submit a motion to the court that I'm going to withdraw those claims and save the court time and show good faith effort in my ability to do litigation in the court. Because I haven't filed a piece of litigation in the federal court before, other than maybe, I think it was 30 years ago with regard to my daughter with USA Gymnastics, and which I actually succeeded in that. because there was an out-of-court settlement on
Okay.
it. No money, just to make sure that things
Right, didn't
were
happen
done
again and
in
was
accordance with
cleaned
the
up.
regulatory efforts of the amateur athletes. So so I'm not an activist. I don't pretend to be. And when they signed that bill, when the governor signed that bill, I withdrew probably, let's see, it was 4 out of the allegations out of the 6
Okay.
that I submitted. The only 2 allegations remaining were the ones with regard to Nashua and with regard to 065 or
Okay.
21-065. And I said, okay, I'm just going to argue those in my appeal. And that's what I did. I saved the court time there. But I used up all of the page numbers, or I should say word count, that is required when you submit a piece of litigation into the U.S. Court of Appeals. And I cited over 40 cases.
Okay.
I cited the New Hampshire Constitution, the 14th Amendment due process clauses. I did everything I was supposed
You
to do.
did all the work.
And I took my time doing it because I'm recovering. You're always recovering, but I had over 100 burns put inside of my heart because of an ablation procedure
Right.
I had done at Mass General Hospital. And that was because I had a very severe AFib condition.
Okay.
It was a chronic AFib condition that I was probably in an ambulance once a week for quite a while.
Wow.
And then after the ablation procedure and having 100 burn marks put inside of your heart, it took a while to recover. I was still recovering even at my daughter's wedding a year later because I still had a lot of skipping. My heart was still sore. A lot was going on.
I've had the procedure twice.
Yeah. So
from an assault. So I
and
know
so
it's
now I
hard.
realize that because of the procedure I had, I can't jog anymore.
Yeah.
I can't wear a mask. And because if I do wear a mask, I then become disabled when it comes to my breathing. Now I can sit but I can't walk, I can't stand, I can't walk around, I can't go to a store, but I can sit and wear a mask. And so I said, well, let me claim a disability during the COVID situation. I couldn't because there was a memo put out by the Attorney General Garland, U.S. Attorney General, that indicates that COVID cannot be used as an excuse to claim a disability.
Oh, really? But yet, sorry, I'm going to digress, but it's allowable. COVID and being sick was allowed for you to request an absentee ballot.
Wow, that's another story.
Yeah, but I mean, for him to say it's not a disability,
So-
that's one of the reasons to get an absentee ballot.
And I put that memo in my complaint so that they could say, look, he's got I have no means of due process now. I can't, I have to stay at home and because I can't go outside.
Because you can't walk
Well,
with a mask
I
on.
can't do holiday shopping. I couldn't do anything. So I had a legitimate reason, and they weren't following the laws that allowed me not to wear a mask with regard to the statutes of New Hampshire. And when the New Hampshire legislature recognized that, that's when they passed the Liberties Law.
Gotcha.
But now you've got a mayor who, at his whim, can call businesses and tell these businesses, we're enforcing a mask mandate now. The businesses can say, well, wait a second, there is no state of emergency in place by the federal government or by the state. He has a law in place now that can force them to do that, which is now superseding a state law that prohibits him from doing that. And
So who's going to hold him in check?
There isn't anybody because I'm trying to go to ask the feds to hold him in check.
Yep.
But yet these judges who are now turning against the people, and I'm going to say that bluntly because I've been very patient about this. And I'm not stopping either. I'm submitting a motion for reconsideration. Whether that goes any place or not, I doubt it.
But you have to go through the process and the steps.
I'm going through the process. But I'm going after the courts legally, and I'm going to start off with filing complaints with the Circuit Court Chief Justice with regard to how their process excludes pro se litigants from giving an argument.
Yep.
It's got nothing to do with the decision. They could have denied my case, but at least given me language that I could bring back to the city and say, look, they're saying that I'm no longer harmed, but you can't have that ordinance in place.
Right.
Okay, you have to remove the ordinance. They wouldn't even do that because I couldn't argue it. And how can you argue, how can you get a decision when you're not allowed to argue or present your case?
So, in my limited knowledge, but it seems to me by them not giving you language that allows you to go back to the mayor and Nashua and say, I'm sorry, you're not allowed to have that law. You can't pass that and you need to get rid of it. But they've pulled the carpet from underneath you and us.
Well, I will say that I'm going to ask the mayor one more time, get rid of 21-065, and I'm going to ask the Board of Aldermen to do that. Because they need to do that, because I'm not going to stop. I'm going to file another piece of litigation in federal court if I have to, after, because I'm not going to go to the Supreme Court with regard to this issue. The Supreme Court hears, or receives, I should say, hundreds of cases a year. They only hear, 40 or something. Then taking a look at this case, it costs $1,500 to file. I just as soon go back to the federal court, refile this one issue, and say, okay, this is the issue that you refuse to address. Now I'm going to file it. Now you're going to have to address it.
Right.
Okay. Now, and I'm upset. I'm not show. I may not show it right now.
I can tell. I've known you long enough that you're agitated. You're not a happy camper. And when you have done everything and told all of us, hang on, wait the time, let the process work, then we do this step, then I do that step, then we do this step, and you've been very precise and very calm. And when I heard from you at the end of last week, I went, whoa, something changed.
Well, the thing that's changed is that the courts are no longer representing the people. When it comes to a point where they're not even going to allow you to grant you a hearing. They don't even want to see you. They don't want to talk to you. They're sitting up on their
up in their little ivory
podiums,
towers.
And I never looked at it that way. I'll be honest with you.
No, you didn't.
I looked at it as, well, they've got a tough job. They have a lot of cases they're dealing with, but this one was so obvious. And when they have the over 100 pages of exhibits, when they have a 77-page complaint, and it's spelled out everything that is required for filing a complaint. I noticed that they didn't say that I didn't have a claim upon which relief could be granted. I do have a claim upon which relief could be granted. They just decided not to hear it.
Correct.
And that's what really upsets me. And that's why I'm not going to stop.
Good. And
even if I have to move forward and keep going with regard to, if I have to go to the legislature and go to Capitol Hill, which I know very well, I've been up there many times, I'm going to keep going on this. And if that means I even have to go after their voting issue, I'm going to do that. And I was going to stay away from that. But now,
you've stayed away from that, and you've kept your eyes on the prize, and you've kept very clear about what you've been doing. And to have this is an insult, and for a high court, for a judge to not follow, three judges, to follow the New Hampshire Constitution that clearly says, Donchess, you can't do this.
Yeah, I mean...
You're in violation of state law.
Well, the thing is that the judge hasn't ruled that they're not in violation of state law.
Right, but
the
he hasn't
judge
said
just didn't
anything.
want to hear it.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that upsets me.
But isn't that complicit?
Well,
you're just allowing it. I mean, to me, and just as I don't know what you know, obviously, but to me, when they don't say anything and they don't look at it, and you're just putting your head in, not you, they're putting their head in the sand.
I no longer have respect for Judge Barbadero. I mean, he needs to retire. He should have looked at this and he should have said, yes, this fella has a complaint. And I'm older than him, so he needs to, if he's already retired, he just needs to get off the seat. And give somebody an opportunity that can read the stuff if he doesn't want to read it.
Correct.
And that's what I'm upset about. And as far as the three judges in Boston, you got one, two Obama appointments and one Biden appointment that heard this case. that's a waste of time because they're all political over there.
Correct.
And I didn't think that they would look at,
Ever
this
be
as political.
political.
I thought they would look at this as if to say, this is a person that has no means of redress because they took away his due process rights under the state law.
Correct.
So what am I supposed to do? Okay, now the state is going to start citing the federal case in case if something else comes up in the future. Now, whether or not they're going to be able to cite this case, they're going to try. Mm-hmm. But the courts are making a mess of everything, and there should be no more lifetime appointments. They're too cushy, they're too cozy up there.
And they're too protective.
And I've never thought like that in my life. But listen, if I'm starting to think like that, can you imagine the millions of Americans that are looking and seeing what's going on? I mean, they need to start changing. Because people like me are starting to get upset and aggravated, and we've been following the law that they cited and that they wrote.
Correct.
So
it's not like you went against them. Wow. Well, in the minute that we have, you know how I always kind of do shiny thing, squirrely, squirrely. But, what did we look at for the last 2 days? I know you've been busy, but I watched the Ways and Means and the committee yesterday with Jim Jordan, and the money that they found with the Biden administration back from when he was a vice president. We're talking $17 million with Burisma. There was another $20 million with companies from Ukraine, Romania, and China. And it was just mind blowing. And then today they did, the social media and whether conservatives and people were their First Amendment rights were being infringed upon. And I sat there listening to these buffoon legislators, not even sticking to the subject and going off on reparations and two-tiered system and this. And I'm looking at them going, well, why don't you have to talk about the subject at hand and what this committee's about? And half of them all walked out. And I said, why are we paying you $174,000 when you just walk your little butt off and don't do? So we're seeing it in everywhere, to your point that people are saying, wait a minute, you work for us. You're a public servant, and that goes for the judges as well. That goes for the president, that goes for the governors, that goes for all of you. We, the people, have the enumerated rights. We, the people, made a contract with the state, which is the state constitution, and the states made a compact with the federal government for 3 items: trade, defense, and infrastructure.
Well, all I know is that the judges are now acting like politicians.
Yes.
And I never thought I would see that. I never thought that I would see a judge where they would look at somebody's a controversy that's going on with the health of a citizen within their jurisdiction and just say, well, we don't see any harm here, when I haven't even presented the evidence yet.
Well, they haven't even talked to you.
No.
And obviously not read it either.
Well, to hold a case for 7 months and after 7 months give me a one-line decision and 2 weeks later they're going on vacation tells me that they have no feelings for the public anymore. It's all about getting to a golf course or and the people need to know that.
Yeah.
And I'm going to make sure that people do know that, and I'm going to start touring all over the place if I have to. But 065 needs to be removed if they want to start shutting me up. I'm not going to shut up.
I love it. Thank you so much. I'm so glad you came here and updated on this. For the people out there, it's a little bit above my head, but I've been doing enough with Wayne and David and Daniel and Al, these guys, and starting to put this all together. The bottom line is these public servants, all of them, from dog catcher to president, work for us. Our God-given enumerated rights, which are 39 in the state of New Hampshire, are protected by the Constitution. They cannot mess with them, and you cannot let them. So we'll keep you posted on what's going on. Keep your eyes open, head on a swivel. Pay attention, people. They work for us. I'll see you next week. Thanks for coming back.
My pleasure.